Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I am a nature play advocate and a nature preschool coach and content creator. If you are interested in finding out about any and all of the offerings I have available, check out my website. I have it linked below. I have workshop opportunities, coaching and consulting plans, as well as blog posts, guidebooks, you name it, I got it there. So go check it out if you're wondering and wanting some extra support. In today's video, I do want to go into literacy outdoors. And this is something I struggled with when I first started teaching outside. I literally struggled with this so hard. And the reason being is because I felt like I had to bring all of those indoor materials, all those amazing loose parts that are plasticky, all of those laminated letters and stuff like that. I had to bring it all outside. So it made me feel like I was an indoor teacher teaching outside. And honestly, that didn't feel natural to me. I started my career being an environmental educator, and I always had a true passion of being outside with kids. But when I was thinking about how I was going to help support children in going forward in their academic life, being outside and doing that just didn't come natural for me. And it wasn't until I started to think outside the box about what literacy can look like outdoors and what the learning standards are for young children is when I really found my joy and found my light and found that learning can be something different than the traditional learning things that we were taught. I think the first thing that we all have to recognize is that children learn at different times and different speeds. Some children are so ready to learn literacy and are able to write their names straight away, while other children, it takes them time. So we have to know that that is something that's going to be in our classroom, and that's something that is okay. Every child learns at their own time. So that's something I always have to tell my caregivers and have to remind myself when I am scaffolding learning, is that each child is developing at their own time and they will be ready when they are ready. And the other thing that I want to mention is that play is learning. And that is something that I didn't recognize until I started teaching outdoors with kids, is that children are learning so much just by playing and just by talking and communicating with each other. They're learning so much about the world around them and literacy. So recognize that children learn at different speeds, and knowing those two things will help you to plan for activities and also see when children are learning about literacy that you didn't even really know. So let's start at the foundation, which is your outdoor classroom. Your outdoor classroom is your third teacher. You're a teacher, the child's a teacher, and your outdoor classroom is a teacher. So making sure that your outdoor classroom already has literacy built in is so helpful. The first thing I just love to have are going to be letter tree cookies or letter rocks. Children are going to engage with those when they're playing, and they're going to be having that opportunity to look at the letters and start getting that recognition in. Sometimes they'll use those letters to spell things. Other times they'll use those letters to hide or just use for fort building. But making that a priority is something I just value so much, and I see so much benefit in it because you're already getting those letter recognitions built in. The second thing when it comes to an outdoor classroom is if you have any laminated pictures of animals that maybe you're bringing out to put on your discovery table, or maybe you just hang animals up in your outdoor classroom, make sure that you're writing the name of that animal underneath, so then the child can start to see the animal and that word underneath. Another thing that I think is super valuable that doesn't take any extra time is when children create their art, writing their name on it or having the child write their name on it. Having children to see their name in their class space is really helpful. in starting to recognize their own name. So sit down with your co-teacher or with yourself or with a friend or with me coaching. We can find out how we can start bringing literacy into your class space. Those are just some options. There's so many different other ways you can do it. So if you need any support, I'm your girl. I'm here. Now let's talk a little bit about planning activities. And this is the fun part. So often we think of this as like the struggle bus, but this is the fun part, my dears. I am here to show you why. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my learning standards or learning outcomes that I have for my students and what I'm going to be documenting learning about. So I use my sheet. This is from Schlitz-Audubon Nature Preschool when I worked there. I used it when I worked at Fiddleheads Forest School, which is here in Seattle. It's just my go-to when it comes to learning outcomes. You might also use learning or teaching strategies goals, or your school might have their own learning outcomes, but majority of the time we're going to have the same stuff, right? We're all teaching preschool, or I'm assuming we're all teaching preschool. So we want to have these learning outcomes laid out, and we want to look through those learning outcomes when we're thinking and planning our activities. And like I mentioned before, play is learning. So a lot of these learning outcomes, when you are observing young children, you're going to be able to write documentation on while children are playing. But when we're thinking about planned activities or planned ways to interweave play or interweave literacy into our day, that's where our activities and our planning comes to be. For me, I bring literacy into life throughout my day. It's not when we're just sitting together at group circle that I'm going to be showing them a letter and telling them the letter and sounding out the letter. It's not going to only be during small group activities that we're going to be talking about literacy. It's literally interwoven throughout our day. And when you start to see that in yourself and your own teaching, you will start to see that you actually do teach a lot about literacy organically in your day. For me, I love when I'm taking nature walks with kids and we stop and we look at letters on the ground. Trees are an amazing teacher. Love my trees. And so often you will notice that their branches fall down to the ground and you can pick those branches up and you can make letters with them. How cool is that? And that is one of my favorite things to do with kids, right? We find a lot of Y's when we're walking. We find some C's, we find some E's, we find some F's, and we show those letters and we talk about those letters. And we talk about who has that letter in their name. Who wants to hold this letter? Can we find more letters like this? We jokingly say that there's a tree in our classroom or in our community called the letter tree. And the letter tree loves to leave letters throughout our walk. And when we find the letters, we always are like, oh, letter tree left us another letter. So it's again, making that play, or making that learning, I should say, into play, which is so valuable, right? Another way that I see literacy in action during my nature walks is with sticks and mud. And you will notice that if you just stop on a trail where there's mud, children will organically start poking that mud and start making and scribble into that mud. I would definitely recommend trying that with your kids. Try that out and see what happens, because they just love to do it. I love to do it. It's something really soothing to do. Or even some of the kids in my class, when we're walking, they take their stick and they drag it in the gravel. Those are all pre-reading and those are all pre-writing skills, right? They're learning how to hold something and manipulate it and move it. They might just be doing scribbles at that moment, and that's okay, because again, that's writing skills. Scribbles are writing. So be aware of that when you're taking nature walks. Take some space to just allow that unstructured playtime and allow them to explore mud, sticks, and all the things that nature has to offer to teach us about literacy. Another thing that I plan and activities that I plan for kids is having nature journals. The reason I have this is because children love to observe the natural world and document what they see or what they hear or what they did in nature that day. So we have nature journals in our classroom. Children sometimes will just like draw their own picture, which is writing, and they will then dictate or tell me what they want me to write if they're younger, and I'll write it down. If they're a little bit older, they might write a few of those words down on their nature journal. So it's really recognizing that and making space for that time in your day is having those nature journals. I can't say enough good things about nature journals. I love looking at them. Caregivers love receiving them at the end of the day. And it gives you like a span, if you do it month to month, which we do in our class, it gives you a really amazing way of reflecting on their growth. So the first picture they might have in the fall time will look totally different than the picture that they have at the end of the year. And having those is really great at learning how children have grown and showing that to caregivers. So those are just a couple of ways that you can start bringing literacy into your outdoor nature-based preschool program. If you are still struggling with this idea of literacy, please feel free to reach out. I feel like everybody is different when it comes to literacy, and I could go on and offer all these activities that you can try. But when it really comes down to it, is that we have to interweave play into learning. And that is just a necessity for us as teachers, is really see the value of play and how we can interweave academic focuses in the play. And I shared those with you today. And the last thing I just want to say is do what feels good to you, okay? If you feel good about bringing letterboxes outside and you see the value in it for your students and for yourself, keep doing it. But if you don't see value in them and you're doing it because you feel obligated to do those letterboxes, check in and be like, do I have to do this? Is there something I can do instead of this? Is there another way I can make this more fun and play-based? So really reflect on your own practices, because just because somebody says that you have to do something doesn't mean that you still have to do it over time. You can always like grow and change and develop, and that's what we're here as educators to do, is to continue to grow and change and develop. I really want to continue to talk about academics outdoors because I see such a value, and I really wanted to talk a little bit about parents and caregivers and how to share that knowledge with them, but I don't want this video to be so long. So I think I will make that video for next week and share with you different ways that I do documentation and share that documentation with caregivers. So until next time, I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching this. So much gratitude for you all and all of the work you do with students and caregivers, honestly. And I just appreciate all the work you're doing, and know that I see it. I don't really actually see it, but like I see it. You're here. All right, have a good rest of your day. I will see you next time. Bye.